Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Education meeting for Lincoln Way High School District 210 to order. Please stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Davis, can you please call the roll?
Dana Berthold.
Here.
Catherine Johnson.
Here.
Joseph Kostick. Richard Lacine.
Here.
Caitlin Olenek. Deidre Stokes.
Here.
Aaron Janik.
Here. All right, for public comment today, we have 4 individuals signed up. First up is Tessa Quinlan.
Hello. My name is Tessa Quinlan. As many of you know already, I am a mom of 3, oldest being a student in the transition program here at Lincoln Way. I'm here to share a sweet, bittersweet speech. 'Tis the month of giving thanks. I felt it was only right to properly thank those who have our children's best interests while they attend Lincoln Way 210 school, both high school and transition. Lincoln Way 210 is a high-quality school that provides all students the best quality of schooling. I can speak of that from my experience of having a senior here at Lincoln Way. She has been provided the utmost quality of supports and opportunities that will prepare her for college, to get through college, and to prepare her for her future endeavors. I can also speak of the quality of education that my son, who is in the transition program. I want to thank all teachers that have had contact with my daughter as well as my son. I want to also thank the therapists and paraprofessionals who have supported my son throughout all his years. Thanks to all teachers, staff, and admin that have attended the games we have had that's in the wrong spot. Thanks to all the teachers. But I was upset to hear of some recent news in regards to Special Olympics Lincoln Way 210 basketball teams. In a recent email us families received, I responded to the coach as he was the messenger. The news shared, we were told that after recent discussions Lincoln Way has had with other schools in Special Olympics of Illinois, it was mentioned that a player can't play for 2 Special Olympics teams, and if they do, it can have repercussions for either team. I mentioned that we, as a group, have advocated for a Special Olympics basketball team for Lincoln Way 210 for over 1 year. Many months ago, dating back to the beginning of the year, us families supplied info regarding other schools that had teams. We suggested the 210 to ask for guidance on Special Olympics teams and asked them to reach out to LWSRA for assistance. We were assured that they were. So now with the news, they are just telling us this now. After a season has started, after the amount of smiles on faces both athletes and families have had. So now I hope you don't have us parents who are now need to tell or ask their children which team they have to choose. You now may have families upset because they were happy to see their child play for Lincoln Way, but now can't because us families were uninformed. When assured that it was being taken care of, we assumed it was being taken care of, from A to Z. Now you may have families that will need to choose between leagues, and either way lose out on any monies that they spent. I'll assume Lincoln Way 210 will lose players to the situation, as Special Olympics Illinois basketball costs more at Lincoln Way Special Rec than 210. So it'd be suggested for those players to be refunded their monies due to misinformation shared. In addition, our stats being taken for both teams, you can only enter region play for a team if you have stats. It'd be unfair to not be able to make a region play due to incomplete paperwork. All of this again was assured that it was being taken care of. Will each team be heading to region play? Any potential plan for state? We now ask these questions because upon the institution of the bowling Special Olympics last year, we were never told there was no intentions to make state for bowling. So I ask now, what are the intentions behind Special Olympics basketball and bowling? If there's no intention to go to state, then don't agree to a Special Olympics league. I don't know any sport that doesn't want to go all the way to represent. Hey, both Lincoln Way East and Lincoln Way Central football are still in the running for such honors. And to add, Lincoln Way 210A has won its 2 last games, and although Team B hasn't won, smiles are present from athletes and families. We have had Dr. Chingley be the scorekeeper at Team B's first game, so thank you. We invite all of you to attend Team B's next game, December 3rd at 5:45 at Lincoln Way Special Rec, and Team A game at Lincoln Way Special Rec on 12/17. I'm praying for the positive that this just recently shared info won't impact many players at 210 teams.
1 minute.
Or will it? What will it look like? I ask these questions now because it's hard to assume we get the same level of respect as other sports. Now back to the suite. Please know that I'm extremely thankful for Coach Leonard and Coach Evans' participation in allowing this to come to life for our children. We know it took some time to start, but elated it started. This is such an opportunity where these kids can be acknowledged for their hard work and be celebrated for their commitments of representing Lincoln Way 210 on a level that was not presented before. Without coaches, we don't have a team, so much thanks to them and all the paraprofessionals that come out and support. I pray it works out for the best interests of the athletes and not somebody else's agenda.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Kayla Kerner.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kayla Kerner. I'm a freshman at Lincoln Way West High School. I'm here tonight because I'm interested in having a girls' flag football team at Lincoln Way. I did a survey asking other girls if they would be interested in trying out for a team in the future, and I got almost 40 responses with mixed feelings. Flag football has been growing drastically in this past year, and I believe it would take off at West. There are so many different surrounding schools, for example, Carl Sandburg, Andrew, Joliet Weston Central, Romeoville, Bolingbrook, Stagg, and that's just to name a few. Having flag football at Lincoln Way West would not only benefit girls my age and older, but future generations to come. Possibilities are endless for this sport. Thank you for listening tonight, and I encourage you to think about a future team next fall at Lincoln Way West.
Thank you. Next up, we have Erica Altz.
Hello, my name is Erica Altz. I wanted to, reintroduce myself to the board and to Dr. Robbins as a West parent for the class of 2029. The Joliet Herald News had a summary of the Illinois report card proficiency, and I was disappointed to see the gap between Lincoln Way West with Central and East. My curriculum director for my feeder district has her interpretations as to why, but I look forward to tonight's curriculum presentation or future presentations in the months ahead to see how that gap is going to be shored up. It would give me more confidence as my future freshman begins here next year. And I also wanted to offer myself up as a parent willing to help as I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
While we will not do that this evening, we will do that in December. And it's important to note this past year they used a different formula. 5% of the overall votes came directly from ELL, and it was the ELL that the target at West missed, and we'll talk and go through that a little bit. Certainly room for improvement in all three of our schools, but we'll have a detailed report to present to the board in December with the audit. Everybody would like to get to the audit, I'm sure, as soon as possible this evening, but we will present that.
All right, and last, we have Jeanette Schultz.
All right. Good evening. It's my first time attending a board meeting that I'm speaking at, so thank you, esteemed board members, for having me and listening to my speech. I do appreciate the invaluable work that you guys do for our students, and I am a representative and a parent in the district of a special needs student at Lincoln Way West. My daughter's a senior. She's been there all 4 years in the LIFE program. As a parent, I do advocate for this special needs community in our district, and I would like to extend some gratitude today, as it is the month of thanks again, echoing Tessa's sentiment. So I want to thank Lincoln Way District 210 for the recent additions in 2024-2025 school year for the basketball program add to the Special Olympics program. So I think, I realize this is the initial year and not everything has gone perfect. And as a parent, that was never the expectation. Everything always comes with its ups and downs in the first year. But I have seen through the ups and downs, but this program is an overall definite need for this school district. And I actually underestimated that. As a representative of the local parent group, I had no idea the interest in this program. So there were 30-plus students, I'm not sure on the exact number, that came out to play Special Olympics basketball in its inaugural year. When we had the first parent meeting, I was amazed to see how many families were present. They took up the entire half of the cafeteria here at Lincoln Way Central. So it was quite, amazing when I walked in to see that. It was also shocking because I absolutely had no idea that that much interest was out there. I was a little bit apprehensive at how many families would be interested. So then, a few weeks later, we've got the season started. We've got the first game here at Lincoln Way Central, and that was just amazing. There was standing room attendance. So many families came out to support, and others. I know some of the students actually came from the Best Buddies program to watch my daughter play in that game. We had 2 teams, so it was really, I didn't get to see everybody in the room because it was the whole entire field house. And so we had both sides, 2 teams playing at the same time. And I do want to give a special shout out, Dr. Tingley, for running that scoreboard that night for the Team 2, and that's the side that my daughter plays on, the Team 2. So that's where I focused my attention that night. So a shout out to anybody else who may have been in attendance, as it was a packed room and I could not see everybody. And neither team did win that night, but, it was just enormous amount of cheers and applause, and the kids were just having the time of their lives out there, getting that opportunity to represent their district and play. So I just want to give a huge shout out to that. And again, neither team won that first game, but it was just the pride. You could see the pride on their faces wearing the Lincoln Way District jerseys. I think the first game they wore their T-shirts, but they now have their jerseys. I also want to send a huge shout out to the coaches, Eli Leonard and Sarah Evans, and all the supporting staff, because I know it takes a lot, and they're doing practices and the game schedule. Now, I know the game schedule is limited in this first year, but I assume this will continue, and so I appreciate all of the efforts and the parapros and everybody supporting it. And thank you to Laura Erlenbaugh and others for organizing the logistics, the transportation. I know it's a lot, and so we are truly appreciative for this opportunity from the district. I do, however, while we celebrate these wonderful achievements.
1 minute, Jeanette. 1 minute.
Thank you. I do want to recognize that it's an ongoing journey. Our students' needs are unique, as you know, and so as the needs evolve, so must the opportunities that are available to them. This existing Special Olympics program has a lot of room for improvement and expansion, and the same can be said for the other extracurricular offerings for our special needs students. And I think the partnership between the school district and the families of students with special needs is essential to ensure the continued offerings and tailoring of these, I would say, extracurricular activities to these diverse students. So everybody should have the right to participate in these programs, and what we're seeing is that progress. Everybody's having access to a meaningful activity. I would like to see a renewed collaboration with the administration going forward, and I look forward to the positive changes that lie ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, moving on, we have the public hearing for the utilization of e-learning days in lieu of emergency days. Can I get a motion to enter the hearing? Can I get a second? All right, we do have public comment available. I have no one signed up, just want to make sure no one wanted to comment on the e-learning days. Do you want to just make a quick statement on them real quick?
So basically, very little has changed. This would allow the district, in case of inclement weather, to do an online e-learning day and not have to make up the day at the end of the school year. Hopefully, we won't be in a situation to do any of those, but it does give us the flexibility as we move through the winter months. We've followed through on the protocols. We've met with each union. It's been posted in the newspaper. We emailed home to all the parents as well. So the hearing is the last portion prior to going to the Regional Office of Education.
Any questions from any of the board members? All right, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing on the e-learning days.
So moved.
All right, so we are all in favor? All right, all right. I think I forgot that on the first part, but whatever, we're in the hearing now. All right, next up, we have the Student Council President's report, and I'm just going to go down the list. We have Central up first.
Good evening. My name is Jameson Stockram, and I'm a senior at Lincoln Way Central, and I'm very excited to share the latest news from my school. This fall, Central has had huge success in providing fun and creative ways to better our school. Our homecoming dance was a huge hit. It featured new additions such as a photo booth, outside area, and food trucks, creating such a fun atmosphere for our students. Also, we recently had our NHS ceremony where we proudly inducted 220 new members, expanding our total to 416 students. Furthermore, our student council just hosted, yesterday actually, the SWSC Student Council Conference, where all 9 schools in the conference come together and have the opportunity to share ideas, meet new people, and of course, improve our leadership skills. We also hosted the Halloween night in the LWC tradition, where we open up the school to the community and allow families to trick or treat through the halls. We collect canned goods at the entrance to donate and place different members from all sorts of clubs and activities throughout the hallways to hand out candy. I would like to continue by highlighting the domination of Lincoln Way Central's athletics this fall. Our boys soccer team finished with an impressive 16-4 record, taking home the conference and regional championships. Our girls swim and dive team finished their season in incredible fashion by sending 5 athletes to state and taking home a conference championship. Furthermore, our girls tennis team and boys golf team both sent 2 athletes to state each. Girls golf qualified for sectionals as a team and sent 1 athlete to state, and both our boys and girls cross-country programs qualified for sectionals and state as a team. And I'd like to mention that senior Braden Hoff earned an all-state accolade. Finally, our football team not only won their conference, but is also still competing in the state tournament, as this is the first time they have reached the semifinals since the year 2000. We look forward to supporting them this Saturday as they take on Batavia at 5 p.m. LWC's extracurriculars have been hard at work creating an impact on the school. Our Nightmare Student section has been the talk of the area as we have been going strong throughout the fall. Some notable feats from the club include interactive halftime shows at football games, promotion and themes for every single sport, and coming this weekend, we're hosting a pre-game community tailgate before the football game. However, most importantly, Nightmares also ran a toy drive throughout all of September in honor of Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, which was a huge success and fostered many boxes of toys for the children. Furthermore, our ROTC program visited local middle schools and made a huge donation to Bethany's Home in Mantino to honor our veterans. LWC has had a great start to community service this year and will continue to make an impact throughout the rest of the year. Our Future Business Leaders of America, an AP Computer Science class, teamed up to take a field trip to Chicago to visit Google's office. Students saw firsthand experience in the day of a Google employee, and we were able to ask questions about the field. Also, our science club just recently planted new seeds for the prairie on campus as they prepare for a controlled burn. Students learn about biodiversity and how burning the prairie actually helps the ecosystem grow back stronger and healthier. With all of our community service, activity, and athletic success, the spirit is high at Lincoln Way Central, and there's never been better opportunities for student involvement in our school. We hope to finish strong and keep the energy rolling throughout the rest of the semester as we near winter break, and we will continue to make our school a better place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up, we'll hear from East.
Good evening. My name is Elena Vargas, and I'm honored to be here on behalf of Lincoln Way East. The Lincoln Way East Student Council Executive Board attended the SWSC Leadership Conference yesterday. Throughout the conference, we discussed ways to improve our leadership skills and talked with other schools in our conference about how their student councils help to promote school spirit and involvement. It was an enlightening day for all of us. And right now, Lincoln Way East is finding new ways to support student growth and give back to our community. On November 13th, Bring Change in Mind and Best Buddies promoted random acts of kindness throughout our building to support World Kindness Day. Also, we are currently running Pennies for Patients Drive to raise money for Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. In addition, many clubs have their holiday drives planned, including Ms. Vandenberg's Adopt a Family and a book drive sponsored by Student Council. During these last couple months, East students have been hard at work showcasing their athletic, academic, and creative talents. Our Griffin athletes capped off a very successful fall sports season with our volleyball and soccer going far in their playoffs. Now, we are excited to support our winter athletes as they compete for the next few months. Creatively, our Griffins have been demonstrating their talents throughout the semester with productions like our fall play, the SWSC Choir Festival, and new reconstruction of our Griffins television studio. Also, the Lincoln Way Marching Band finished in the top 22 bands out of 113 competing at the Bands of America Grand Nationals competition in Indianapolis this month. In addition, December will bring a winter concert showcase, numerous magical performances, and a trip to Pasadena and the Rose Parade for the LWMB. It's always wonderful to see our students shine. Finally, this week, our football team will host the 8A semifinal game against Loyola Academy Saturday at 6 p.m. We're looking forward to a big turnout, especially since our student section has done an amazing job supporting our team this year. The Griffins are hoping to take another state football title home. All in all, it's been a wonderful first semester, and we look forward to what the second semester will bring. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. And last but not least, we'll hear from West.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Amelia Peterson, and I am the president of Student Council at Lincoln Way West. As we head into the end of the semester, it's important that we give back to the community that has done so much for us. It is vital that we are reminded of the importance of giving back and supporting others. With that in mind, I am excited to announce that Lincoln Way West Student Council has begun its annual food drive. Our goal is to collect as many non-perishable food items as possible. Every single contribution makes a difference, and together we can help put food on tables for those in need. The next event we have scheduled is the Polar Express. This festive gathering is all about community and joy. At Lincoln Way West, we set up activities and decorations for the young children in our community, and we invite all families to come to this event. We know that for some, the holidays can be a challenging time, and we want to create a space where everyone feels welcome, included, and uplifted. On World Kindness Day, our Bring Change to Mind took the lead in spreading positivity throughout the hallways of Lincoln Way West. To celebrate, members shared kindness clips throughout the day, short, uplifting messages designed to inspire and brighten others' day. Bring Change to Mind also set up a kindness-themed photo booth in the cafeteria where hundreds of students stopped by to participate. The booth was a fun and interactive way to encourage all warriors to celebrate kindness. Lincoln Way West once again embraced the motto, "Warriors are kind," and showed how a simple act of kindness can create a ripple effect, fostering a more positive and welcoming environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you. All right, next up for our presentations, nothing under curriculum
Nope,
instruction?
we're gonna come back. We'll get right to the audit report.
All right, so next up is the audit report. And we're going to hear from Katie and brought along a colleague. Sorry, I don't remember her name. And Kelly, are you presenting as well, or are you just on standby?
She'll do the intro.
Gotcha.
You know, got to do my intro.
I knew I was going to ruin it, so.
Good evening, everybody. As we're just saying, we have Katie Napier and Sarah Barkowski here from Warmer Rogers, Doran and Ruzan, our audit firm, and they are here to present the results of our fiscal year 24 audit. I'm happy to say that it was a pretty uneventful audit this year, and that's always a good thing when it comes to audits. So I'll let them go through the details. They're probably going to spend the next hour and a half doing so just buckle up. Just kidding. It's my joke every year, sorry. Yeah, so just a couple highlights. This year, once again, we got a clean opinion. That's what you want for an audit. Katie and Sarah will go over what that means a little bit further. Although the scores are still preliminary right now, our financial profile scores, once again, showing financial recognition this year, which is the highest recognition that you can receive from the state, which obviously we've come a long way from the watch list of, 7-8 years ago now. So it's looking like that will be our score once they're finalized in the spring. And then every year we get a management comment letter from them. There is one additional comment from the one that we typically get related to our capital assets this year, and that's just related to expenditures in excess of budget in Fund 10. That was literally just due to an oversight on our part when we amended the budget in June. We forgot to transfer over the TRS on behalf amount. That is just an amount that it's basically a flow through. We don't pay it. It's just we're required to put it on our budget form and then on our AFR at the end of the year. And we just didn't transfer that budget amount over to the amended budget form, and that's what is causing that management comment. But other than that, everything went really well. I thank them for all the work that they do. It's a very efficient audit, and always like to thank my staff and in the annex, our bookkeeping staff, who really helps with pulling all of the selections and everything in a timely manner so that we can, as much as we love having them, but getting them out in and out as quickly as possible. So I'll turn it over to them.
Thank you, Kelly. Good evening. Thank you for having us tonight. As Kelly mentioned, my name is Katie Napier. I was the partner in charge of the audit this year. This is Sarah Barkowski. She was the manager in charge of the audit. So we're just going to go through a couple highlights. Hopefully everyone received electronic copies of the reports. We're just going to pull a few pages that we think are important to go over. If you have any questions, feel free to stop us. We'll also have a few minutes at the end as well to go over any questions there are. So as Kelly mentioned, our job is to come in and to the district and issue an opinion on the district's financial statements. So what that is we come in August for about 2 weeks. It takes, a little time after that as well, but we perform a series of tests, reconciliations, walkthroughs. We confirm bank balances, investment balances, debt balances with third parties. We confirm revenue with the county. We confirm revenue with ISB. And we pull all that together, and what our job is to say, is that materially stated? So if a third party was looking at these financials, are these materially correct? And what that table in the center there, our opinion is actually 3 pages long. But the highlight there, the opinion is an unmodified opinion on the cash basis of accounting, which means a clean opinion. So we feel that these numbers are materially accurate. Just a highlight of the changes in fund balances for fiscal '24. So we are going back a little bit in time. We are looking at fund balance as of June 30, 2024. A few items to note. Fund balance increased $9 million during fiscal '24. All funds ended the year with positive fund balances. And the general fund, which is the main operating fund of the district, had $34.3 million fund balance as of June 30th, 2024. If we dive a little bit deeper into the general fund, you may ask what makes up the general fund. The general fund consists of 4 funds or accounts: the educational fund, the O&M, working cash, and tort. And if you look at the table on to the right, you'll see all those funds together equal that $34 million fund balance we saw in the previous slide. If we just take a look at the educational account, which is the main operating account of all districts, that fund balance ended at $28.1 million. If we look at the different designations of that fund balance, so $245,000 of that fund balance represents building trades land that the district has. $2.1 million of that fund balance is restricted for student activity funds. And then the rest, the $25.8 million, is unassigned and can be used how the district sees fit. If we continue looking at the educational account, again, we can see here revenues ended at $129 million, with the main source being property taxes. Expenditures were $125 million, with the main expenditure being instruction. Revenues over expenditures, there was an excess of $4 million. So that means fund balance increased in the educational account by $4 million during fiscal '24. So if you compare the ending fund balance just in the educational account to the expenditures, excluding those on-behalf payments that Kelly mentioned that really aren't cash, they're just representative of what the state pays on behalf of the district. The educational account has about 3.8 months of fund balance, which is right where you want to be. We typically recommend 4 months, so the district's right in that area. Another important item to note is the district's long-term debt. So as of June 30th, 2024, the district had $203 million of long-term debt outstanding. $6 million in principal payments were made during fiscal '24, and 6.5 is scheduled to be made in fiscal '25. Another item that Kelly had mentioned, so this is the estimated financial profile summary. ISB provides this template, so what we do is we take all the financial information that the district provides us, the trial balance of all the funds, we put it in this template, and then they calculate this score. So if you can see on the bottom right-hand side, the total profile score was 3.7, which is a designation of recognition. So you might ask what that means. The total profile score is the sum of 5 weighted scores: fund balance to revenue ratio, expenditures to revenue ratio, days of cash on hand, percentage of short-term borrowing ability, and percent of long-term debt margin remaining. The highest score a district may receive is 4.0, and the lowest is a 1. So you can see the district was on the higher end with a 3.7. And as Kelly mentioned, I just put there, if you go back a few years, you can see in 2017, the district score was a 2.35 and was on the watch list, so you can really see how the district improved through the years. Now Sarah's going to go through a couple other deliverables, starting with the single audit.
Thank you. Okay, so as Katie said, I'm going to go through the single audit. So the single audit is required when the district expends more than $750,000 in federal funds. The district in 2024 expended $3.8 million in federal funds. So what we do is we first look at all those funds, and then we determine from there what we call our major program to get over a certain coverage percentage. So the major program this year that we tested was the special education cluster. You'll see that that cluster had $1.8 million of federal funds in 2024. And then that special education cluster has a couple different federal grants in it. It's the IDEA flow-through, the IDEA room and board, and the ARP IDEA flow-through. And then this is just a summary of auditors' results. I think it's a really good kind of summary, as it says, of all the different opinions that we express, not only on the single audit, but as the financial statements as a whole. So numbers 1 through 4 on the top of the slide there kind of go over what Katie talked about at the beginning of the audit, or at the presentation, which are those unmodified, clean opinions on the financial statements as a whole. And then 5 through 8 go through specifically for the single audit. And again, we are able to express a clean, unmodified opinion on the single audit with no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no audit findings found on the single audit. And then just to kind of go over a couple other deliverables that we provide the district. The communication with those charged with governance during audit planning or the pre-sess letter, we provide that during the beginning stages of the audit. The communication with those charged with governance at the conclusion of the audit or the post SAS letter, and the biggest part of that letter is that we provide the adjusting journal entries, or the proposed entries that we make during the audit fieldwork. And then the last being the management letter, with which Kelly kind of discussed at the beginning, with those 2 comments on the management letter. Again, these aren't findings or anything, they're just recommendations or areas of improvement that we see during our audit process. So the one being about, the first one is a repeat comment about fixed assets and the possible need for an appraisal. And then the second being that the budget being in excess of, over budget on the educational account. Which again, if we took out those on behalf payments, the budget was in line, the expenses were under budget. It was just that on behalf payment that made it over budget. And any questions?
Any questions about the audit?
That 3.8 months number, that's the days of cash on hand, or is that?
That's,
Sorry, again.
That's just if you take the ending fund balance and divided it by the total expenditures, if you took out that, so it's not really the cash on hand, but it's kind of, if you stopped getting revenue in, how long in fund balance would you have approximately?
And you said a 4.0 is the best for,
For the financial profile score, 4.0 is the best,
and we're at
correct?
3.7. How do we get to a 4?
Well, any of those, well, actually, if you look at the profile itself, I think most of the scores are at a 3 or a 4. There was one at a 2. And I believe it was percent of long-term debt margin that brought it down.
So as we continue to pay that down,
That should bring that.
our scores will
yep.
go up? Just making sure we understand that. So just about 6 more years? 7? 8, sorry.
Probably 6, though, will put us in a better mark.
Yeah, we'll go. 8 will be 4. So, all right. Any other questions? No? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I just want to say too, thank you to Michael and Kelly. They do a great job. The staff does a great job. They're very organized, efficient, forthcoming, and we really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving right along, we have the consent agenda. Let me just, items F1 through F5. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
It's F1 through F6.
Well, F6 is approving it.
Oh.
So now we'll open the vote to approve the consent agenda.
Should have Joe Costick's side notes.
Voting is open. Mr. Lassie, may I call your vote?
Motion passes? All right, great.
Motion passes.
Next up, we have under action items, presentation of invoices for October 18th, 2024 through November 21st, 2024. I would entertain a motion to approve the invoices in the amount of $4,470,515 as presented.
So moved.
All right, any questions on the invoices? Blue Cross Blue Shield, still up at that $1 million mark, roughly?
Yeah, and remember now, when you see these dollar amounts, we have combined medical and dental now that dental is with Blue Cross Blue Shield. This is in line roughly with the last few months.
Okay,
So I feel okay about that one.
okay. Any additional questions? All right, hearing no questions, we have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote? Rich, is your computer up and running yet?
The vote is unanimous, motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the treasurer's report for October 2024.
In October, revenues totaled $5.2 million, expenditures $9.2 million. All funds cash balance as of October 31st was $81.4 million. As you know, this is our high cash point during the year is September, October. Through October 31st, 41.3% of budgeted operating revenues have been received. 32.6% of budgeted operational spending has occurred. Similar data at this point last year, 41.6 and 32.4. So we are right in line, both revenues and expenses trending great. Investment report through October, liquid rates have dropped a little bit to 4.8%. Other investments were locked in at 4.4% with varying maturity dates, and that was intentional. The feds did have a 25 basis point or 0.25% rate cut on November 7th. Another is predicted in December, so we'll see where that takes rates in the future. Cash variance and that should read October, excuse me there, sorry about that, negative $2 million. It was positive in September. Quarterly state payments did get caught up. Looking ahead, final tax levy will be brought for recommendation and adoption in December. And at this time, we're working with DLA. Our intended timeline and hope is to bring some capital project updates in December. And that's all I have. Take any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mike? All right, hearing no questions, I would entertain a motion to approve the treasurer's report. We have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. The vote is unanimous, motion passes.
All right, next up is the student activities report for October 2024.
For the month ended October 31st, the total student activity fund balance was $2,502,804 with revenues of $558,341 and expenditures of $642,944. There were a couple in the negative. The Lincoln Way Marching Band Field Show, that's been put back in the positive after they hosted their show. Speech team, guitar studio, drama club, all just due to timing. We're asking for approval of 2 new accounts, the Women's Empowerment Club at Central and Robotics Club at West. I ask that you approve the student activities report as presented.
Entertain a motion to approve the report. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions on the student activities report?
The 2 new accounts, how do we fund those?
The students will fundraise for those. And that's the really, I guess, one of the unique things about Lincoln Way is if students want to start a club, they get together, they draw their charter, they find a faculty member to sponsor them, and then away they go. So these are 2 new clubs that will start this year. They do have to meet with the principal and go through the process, but from time to time, we add clubs throughout the years.
Do the other 2 schools have robotics clubs?
I know Central does because I know where they are. Mr. Griggs, does East have robotics club this year? Yes, they do, because I think Mr. Murphy might be the sponsor of that. That's what I thought. So yes, now all 3 will.
Some of the stuff they're looking at, I was reading through, they're looking at buying some stuff. Some of it, I don't know what it is, but it looks like it could be pretty, like, computers and stuff. I mean,
Well,
it looks to be pretty expensive.
They also have, the principal has their own budget, and they are always willing to help student activities. So they will be meeting with Dr. Robbins for those.
The only reason I'm asking is maybe there's a business in the area, a manufacturing place that would want to partner with all 3 schools and a robotics club to donate some of this stuff.
Yeah, it's something we can look at. I do know we have received from different businesses. I know particularly here at Central, when they started up, they did, but that's something we can look into.
Okay. All right, the vote is open. So, if there are no further questions.
vote is unanimous. This motion passes.
All right, next up is the 2024 tentative tax levy.
Thank you. I am going to use some slides just to go through this in an organized manner. I have included several documents in your packet materials this evening. Please feel free to review them. The FAQ is there, cover memo, and other supporting information. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to stop me. The tax levy represents roughly 70% of our operating revenue, so it's an important annual process. After our administrative team determines recommendations for each fund, as you know, we present those to you in tentative form. We'll bring a recommendation in December. In certain years, if we recommend an increase that's more than 5%, a public hearing is required in December. We did do that last year, just when inflation was higher. That is not the recommendation this year. So we're under 5%, no public hearing required. And then after board approval, I work with the county to finalize data. On the slide in front of you here, I look at historical trends for property values and new construction. I'm going to start at the bottom table and then I'll go to the top. Bottom table, preliminary EAV, taxable property throughout the district. Preliminary estimates are $6.1 billion of taxable property value. So that is a new threshold for us. By the time that's finalized with exemptions, it usually goes, you can see how consistent that is, it usually drops about 7%. This is important work for me because using those final and what I estimate the final is helps me in terms of the tax rate formulas and how I estimate the levy dollars that we need for the upcoming year. Moving to the top, as for new property, if you look in the middle column, which says final, new construction values went up steadily from 2017 through 2022. They did decrease last year. And then this year, the preliminary was $48 million, so continuing to slow a little bit. I spoke to the county last week. They do believe the final new construction will be around $57, $58 million. And just for context, in the 5-cast, we had $55 million in there moving forward. So these 4 data points are what were incorporated into this year's levy. EAV in construction, as I just said, and then a 3.4% CPI from last year. And all of this is based on the previous year's extension that was just over $84 million. This is a lot of calculations. The yellow arrow pointing in that green column, those are the dollar amounts that I'm recommending for the levy in each fund. Those are sufficient to ensure not only that we capture proportionally the new tax dollars from new properties, but as you can see in the transportation fund, for example, I'm recommending an increase. I look at our fund balances and our operational needs in the upcoming year, and I make adjustments fund by fund in this levy process. So those incorporate those. And with that arrow there, as you can see, it represents 4.96% over last year. And I always like to make this statement during this presentation. Existing taxpayers, not on an individual by individual basis, but collectively, existing taxpayers will see an increase of just CPI, or 3.4%. The rest of that difference is made up by new property coming on the tax rolls for the first time. Bottom right-hand corner, total levy, including bond and interest, would see a 4.11% change. I did share some similar data last year in terms of tax rates in some comparable districts, and so I updated those tables to represent the most recent year. As you can see on the top right, average historical rates, Lincoln Way's operating tax rate, both the 5-year average and 10-year average remains lowest among other Will County high school districts. And then finally, proud that we do spend efficiently. Our students do well, and we're in a strong spot operationally now. We accomplish this while still having one of the lowest operating expenses per pupil in the area. So with all that said, my recommendation this year is shown on this slide. And as you know, transparency and clarity are important to me. I'm not going to walk through all of the details in that FAQ, but those supporting resources are included for that reason. That's all I have on the tentative tax levy. Would bring a final back next month for board adoption. Happy to take any questions you have.
Any questions for Mike? For the FAQ, I think number 10 probably is the one that's most important for me. Why aren't we lowering the levy? Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. So in terms of not lowering the levy, as you know, we don't want to go higher than we need to go, but obviously staffing, salaries, and benefits are our highest cost, and those are ongoing costs, and those are costs that are not going to go down. If we were in a different position, maybe a district consolidates or, staff went down or things change, but that's our consistent expense, and that's going to go up. And so this is important for us to capture operational dollars for us to match our spending needs.
When you ask for it, you don't necessarily receive it, right? I mean, it's not like you've ever.
We only receive what we are eligible to receive. That's correct. So in that example, 4.96%, right? So when the county finalizes all the data at the end of the year, if they say, hey, CPI was 3.4, you're only going to get another 0.6% from new construction. So you can only get 4%. Then that's all we get.
Yeah.
The reason for levying in this manner is to make sure that we do capture all of the
New construction.
eligible revenue from new properties so that burden doesn't get shifted back onto existing taxpayers.
Mhm. Yeah. Good work.
And the EAV, looks like it's down.
Yep.
Preliminarily, it's, I don't know, 6 billion. But every year, it's like, when it finalizes, it's always like 6-7% lower.
Correct. That's after all the exemptions are applied, so your
Okay.
homestead exemption, all that kind of stuff. And that's why I like to use that table and look preliminary to final, because with all the formulas and as you calculate the tax rates, as I do my work to estimate what I really think our revenues are going to be, I want to be basing on where I think it's really going to end, not the preliminary number. So
And
I
that's
take
not
that
something
into
that
account.
we, as a district, determine. That's done by
That has
the,
nothing to do with us, determined by the
assessor.
county.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
so we're not estimating super high, and then,
We are not. We are not. No, sir. Thank you.
any further questions? All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2024 tentative tax levy as presented.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. The vote is unanimous. Motion passes.
All right, next up is motion to approve the school maintenance project grant as presented.
This is an annual grant, as the board knows. This year, $48.4 million allocated for the first round from the state of Illinois. We bring this forward every year. It's $50,000 in matching funds. And so there are 5 categories: emergency projects, health and life safety, state priorities, permanent improvements, and other. This year's recommendation is fire panel improvements at both Lincoln Way East and Central for a total of roughly $105,000. And so what we would do is we would proceed with this work, and then we would receive reimbursement of $50,000 from the state. Pretty standard annual request. Happy to take any questions if you have it, though.
What did we use it for last year? Was it I thought it was.
Pool climate control units, I believe,
Okay.
if I remember right. We've done asbestos
I know there
in
was
the past.
control something panel
Mhm.
thing.
Yep, we've
so,
done
okay.
asbestos. It's a variety of projects over time. Yep.
All right, can I get a motion to approve? Motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. This vote is unanimous. Motion passes.
All right. Next up is the the music equipment bid.
Once again, another annual bid. These pieces of equipment can be expensive, so we always go out to bid for it. Our recommendation this year is Quinlan and Fabish for a total of $46,139.02. High level, last year we had 5 bidders, this year 2. Quinlan won last year. They were great to work with. and our music department really likes their instruments. So request your approval tonight.
I'd entertain a motion to approve. We have a motion and a second. Any questions on the music equipment bid?
Real quick, that up and down with how many people, is it the specific stuff that they're requesting to buy each year that we're limiting ourselves?
Good question. It does vary what our music department needs every year. We were surprised to only receive 2 bidders. I was informed there was just at the time we were out to bid, there's a big vendor conference that a lot of these vendors were at. I don't know.
Is that costing us, do you think? Do they think? Oh, okay.
No. Quinlan and Fabish was low last year.
Okay.
And they've won the last few years. So, good question.
I know we've talked about in the past, is there some sort of, I don't want to say a memo or spreadsheet, or some way to see what all we have in terms of music equipment, what's coming up like over the years? Or is it, like to Rich's point, it just kind of ebbs and flows?
Well, it does ebb and flow. We do have a capital improvement plan, so to speak, or cycle for the musical instruments. Sometimes it just depends on the wear and tear. They might have more ensembles, more instruments used in a particular year. They've also worked with me in the business office in terms of a capital budget to replace music lockers, different things like that. So that is something I'll make a note of, just to keep.
I mean, we have like a 10-year plan for,
We do. We have
roofs and parking lots,
Yep.
and as we're replacing music equipment every year, just what's on the horizon coming up.
Absolutely.
And you may recall, this is relatively new. So this is something that Brad developed. And so we developed over time because, kind of to your point, Aaron, it was kind of a one-off. One year they would need 150,000, and then the next year we would do 35,000, and then the next year 170 again. And this way we're able to fit it into the budget and kind of plan a couple years out. So we can get you some more information there. Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, the vote is open.
The vote is unanimous. Motion passes.
All right, next up is the school bus bid.
As I provide an update regarding the bus bid, the information I'll share here will apply to both the recommended bid award and the financing, which are the next 2 agenda items under the action portion for your consideration. We currently lease 130 diesel buses, and those leases, as you know, are on staggered timelines for when those expire. The intent there is to align with the staggering of our intergovernmental agreements with the feeder districts. As the board knows, in recent years, just given the vehicle market, we have done some extensions on those leases, some 1, some 2 years, when it made financial sense to do so. Andy Reeser, our Director of Transportation, and I have updated our bid specifications. We went out. That was a conversation I think Mr. Lachine, you had mentioned before. We went out earlier this year to get some aggressive pricing and to make sure vehicles were here. We went out to bid for both diesel and gasoline buses. And then additionally, we requested pricing to lease them, but also to see what purchasing 40 buses would look like. There are pros to gasoline. Andy has a great deal of experience with those vehicles, and we wanted to see price points on both. We received bids from 3 vendors. The tabulation is included in your packet materials. Whether gas or diesel, the interesting piece, and this does speak a little bit to a tight market, that the numbers were right in terms of the market. All bids were right in that $5.8 million range. I mean, we're talking within $60,000 or so of each other. Interestingly, 2 vendors only bid on diesel and 1 only bid on gas. The lowest leasing price was roughly $850,000 per year for 40 buses. So as we started to take a look at this, after considerable review, reference checks, budget forecasting, we are recommending to purchase 40 gasoline buses from Central States. Lincoln Way is not a district with excess fund balances, and so I'm recommending a financing to own model. Rather than contracting, as we typically do, and signing a leasing agreement, I've worked with Bob Lewis at PMA to secure the attached, and this is in your packet materials as well, 7-year financing model so that we can handle the financing directly. That also keeps our rate a little bit lower than if we were to go through a third-party leasing agency through the contractor. Annual payments, as you can see, are structured at roughly $850,000 to $860,000 per year for 7 years, very similar to the lowest leasing bid. We took a look at some more aggressive, what would it look like to have those payments done in 3 or 4 years? That was a little too high for us. I also don't think we need to finance it out 9 or 10. So the recommendation is at 7. And so to keep those payments at exactly where we would be otherwise, with an additional $400,000 in cash up front from us in that first year, that's why that first year looks like $1.2 million. I think this model makes sense for 2 reasons. We have never had a lease-to-own model. And so after 5 years, even if we extend to the 6th or the 7th model, when we send them back, we have nothing to show for it. And so by purchasing, we obviously own the assets, we have the resale value. Market right now, and Andy and I did some research, after 7 years, that estimate is anywhere from $1.2 to $1.5 million in terms of the asset value. We also believe we can maintain the buses and complete a significant amount of warranty work in-house, which is going to keep them in really good shape. We believe we can keep them for longer, at least 10 years. Andy wants to aim for 12. I joked with him that I was going to say that. Even if we keep it for 10, even if we keep these buses for 10, that's an additional 3 years where we then don't have that $850,000 payment, right? And so right there is an extra $2.5 million to the better for the district. The financing occurs, the structure and how it works is it occurs through the use of a debt certificate, which is the second action item. It functions just like a leasing agreement. These payments are made, and this is the important part, they're made out of our operating budget, out of our operating funds. And so there's no additional burden to taxpayers. Many districts use this model to replace traditional leases, whether that's for capital equipment. A lot of capital leases are done this way through this type of certificate, vehicles, copiers, or other needs. So on the financing page, you can see the upfront proceeds would be $4,565,000, and then that remaining $1,164,200 coming from the district as part of the fiscal year 26 budget. The bulk of that is already included in that 5 cast. We would just need to add that roughly $425, and I believe that can be managed. We can shift a couple of things in the FY26 budget. It is well worth the impact next year for long-term savings to the district. And then finally, pending board approval, district administration would work with PMA and Chapman and Cutler, bond counsel, to finalize documentation, timelines, and closing. So this would be a one-time resolution. With that, I am happy to take any questions you might have. I will say Andy and I both have conducted multiple reference checks regarding Central States as a partner, both in CSBO network and in the transportation network, in terms of a vendor relationship and in terms of a supplier of quality vehicles that will last. Everyone we've spoken to has responded with very positive feedback.
All right, Rich, what's your question? I could see you going like this.
First of all, I'm 100% behind this. I think this is an absolute right move.
Thank you, sir.
So, long-term, over 10 years, because I drive everything till it's dead, 500,000 miles.
Can't drive a bus, though.
What is our...
Not allowed. Not allowed to drive the bus. Can't drive
Right.
the bus.
So, what is the interest rate on the financing? How does all that play in?
Sure.
And you know where I'm going. Just, we're getting 2% on our money that she just said we have, $25 million, you can do whatever you want. Why don't we just buy them and instead of paying 5 and only getting 2,
Sure.
we get an extra 3% a year.
It's a cash flow analysis, absolutely, right? And I looked at models where we would try to pay more upfront in cash.
I'm talking about writing a check for $4 million.
So we can't write a check that much and still maintain fund balance per board policy. And
Right.
And what I don't want to do is get overzealous and have too many interfund loans. And as you know, typically through cash flow, we'll do that in the spring. We finally got to a point last year where we don't need to.
Right.
It's a really good question, Rich, because.
So what's so to make it simple, what are we gonna pay in interest versus what are we getting on that 25 million? What is the differential?
We're going to pay the differential. Well, as you know, interest rates right now on the cash we could be investing are low fours, and this is low fours. This is 4.31. So that
So
part's
it's just,
a wash.
okay, so it's almost, all right, so we're not paying more in interest than we're collecting on that money sitting in our bank.
No, but no, we're not. And
Okay.
and I do want to say it's a really good question because we have next year 32 buses with a lease expiring, and then 2 years after that have a big group. And so this is something that, depending on how this goes, what I didn't want to do is get overzealous, and then we need to replicate this model next year if
Right.
you all were supportive of it, and now we really don't have the cash flow for it, right? So that's why I've tailored in the middle a little bit.
Okay.
I have a question.
No, not, as long as we're not paying, paying out twice as much as we're collecting in interest on the 25, then you don't have to write the check.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I know you mentioned that the maintenance costs, a lot of that'll be absorbed internally. Is that a shift from what was happening with the lease? Was that all being sent out as work? Was it covered by the dealerships? Like, how did the maintenance get addressed?
Good question. I'm going to answer generally, and if there's
Okay.
more specifics, I'll
Sorry.
turn to Mr. Reeser. Right now, through Midwest Transit, they send a mechanic to do some of the warranty work a couple days a week up to our shop. That poses a challenge sometimes because if the buses get backed up or that person they're not able to send a second mechanic, now we have buses sitting for longer. By shifting to this, Andy, correct me, is it a Ford motor? Ford motor platform, yes. In the gasoline bus. And so what this also allows then is you don't need a diesel-specific mechanic, and we want to move toward doing some of that warranty work in-house. Yep.
Great. And then the only other question was insurance. Does it shift or change because it's an ownership versus a lease? No. Okay. Great. Thank you.
Question I had was, so the warranty on the new buses, does it still cover certain things that you get with the lease as well? We get some of the same coverage?
Yes, it covers everything that the leasing warranties would. Full warranties are 5 years, correct? 5 and 5 with unlimited miles. There you go.
And then, great, and then the buses that we're coming up on the end of the leases, we're just turning those back in because we're just in a lease, correct?
That's correct.
And so, okay, yes, I like the proposal, thanks.
Thank you all. And Andy did a lot of work on it, so credit to Andy.
Will we need to hire any additional mechanics? Because we'll be handling the repairs
We will
in-house?
not. No, sir.
Hopefully they don't need any repairs. They're brand new.
Well, I mean, for what it's worth, 2 years from now, I don't know,
Sure.
6 buses go down for whatever, a variety of reasons. We would do the repairs, but if we were leasing them, the company would come. How does it work
It's
right
paid
now? I
back
guess?
on warranty.
Come up to the,
Yeah.
I think isn't it paid back, a rebate warranty?
So the warranty is such that if the motor goes bad or something inside the casing is bad, that would go to a Ford dealer that does truck maintenance for Ford. So the internal parts of the motor will be handled by them. Everything else, bumper to bumper, will be handled by us and charged back.
Yeah. Okay. And this is, obviously, you're saying this is the way to go. How come we haven't done this in the past?
I was hired in July of 2021.
If you would have been hired in June, we could have done it, is what you're saying?
Nope. So in July of 2021, I remember looking at the leases that Brad had, and the 2019 bid that went out for 2020 buses, they were, I think it was 10,000 and something a bus per year per bus, and just this many years later, $28,000 per year per bus. It's just not a sustainable way to go for us anymore. It made sense to do the 5-year leases with 5-year intergovernmental agreements with the feeder districts. It was perfect. The money made sense. Now the differential does not make sense anymore. That's why we've done some of the extensions we've done. And now with Andy on board and with his expertise going through this process, this is absolutely what makes the most financial sense for us.
Along them lines, so if we're gonna start buying buses, which again, I 100% support, we're gonna have to really track with the intergovernmental agreements because we don't wanna end up with.
There's a
It's a balancing act of how many buses we need.
It is. And luckily for us, and Andy and I have both met with Manhattan, we'll have more on that next month. But in terms of our feeder district interest, it remains very stable. The pro to owning them over having the leases is that if a feeder district said that they were out and we're in a lease that we can't get out of, now we're stuck. Here, we can sell the buses.
It would be very unlikely that any of our current feeders would leave. Yeah.
I meant,
But you're
you know,
right. Yeah.
6-8 years down the line.
Sure.
I mean, this really works out if we make it to that bridge and, you know, we now own them and we get 3-4 years out of them, that's a, you know, it's a cash cow. But we end up with, like you said, we could always sell them, but
We can.
I mean, the real benefit is if we, you know, run the whole gamut.
Absolutely.
This way, we're never stuck.
All right, any additional questions? Okay. So I would entertain a motion to approve the school bus bid as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. The vote is unanimous. This motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the resolution authorizing and providing for the issue of not to exceed 4.6 million debt certificates for the purpose of purchasing school buses in a finance-to-own model in lieu of traditional leasing, authorizing installment purchase agreement, and authorizing the sale of said certificates to the purchaser thereof. So can I get a motion to approve what I just said? Second. Any further discussion? No. All right, Michelle, can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. This vote is unanimous. Motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the intergovernmental agreement between the School Association for Special Education in DuPage County and Lincoln Way District 210.
From time to time, we do have a student, based upon special needs, that we would have to place outside of the cooperative or a private placement. This just so happens to be another cooperative placement. So as a formality, we're just asking for approval of an intergovernmental agreement between ourselves and the special education in DuPage County to provide services for one of our students for the remainder of the school year.
All right, I'd entertain a motion to approve the IGA as presented.
So moved. Oh, second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All right, can you please open the vote?
Voting is open. This vote is unanimous. Motion passes.
All right, next up, we have the report of the Special Education District 843 Governing Board.
Thank you. Most recent meeting, one shift that's kind of great. We have now access for families to listen to those meetings. They have now live streamed the audio. So you're able to, if you're a family member of someone who attends 843 and would like to listen to the board meetings, that's available to you now on the website. We had great discussions. Sarah, again, is working to continue to keep staffing stable, and as positions vacate, filling those with new positions. There's a teacher that should be hired and ready to go to fill a vacancy very shortly. So we should be fully staffed at that point. Again, we'd like to hear involvement, so if anyone's interested in sharing their thoughts, that's a great forum for that.
All right, thank you. We have FOIA requests.
FOIA requests are included in your backup materials.
All right, the buildings and ground report.
Also in there, if there's any questions, I'm sure Chuck would be excited to answer those.
You gave a thumbs up for
Yeah,
those
that's
of
right.
you viewing at home. We have the community relations report.
Once again, in your backup materials for your review.
Anything from District 210 advisory?
We're still going the second phase of the logo and the branding for the district, and so it's kind of exciting. The company that has been hired to do that, so it's going to be exciting as to what we're going to come up with after all these years of having a dark brown and beige logo.
Light brown and beige? No, I'm just kidding. All right, next up is first reading for policies.
Nothing in particular, just included in your backup materials, and we can discuss in December, but mostly footnote changes, not, and then an update to Title IX legislation, just making sure we're in compliance.
The first reading for the 2025-2026 school calendar.
It's always an exciting time. Hard to believe we're at that time, but first draft of the calendar for next school year. We would start on the 18th of August. We always try and align our school calendar with the IHSA calendar. And so this would give fall sports, all fall sports, the week of the 11th for your golf competitions and different events. And then we would start school the following week. We included 4 institutes spread throughout the year. This calendar does call for 2 full weeks for the winter break, which teachers and parents typically like. The item that all semester teachers go through is the balance in semester to see how many days there are between. We're 10 days apart. Our current calendar is 12 or 13, I forget. So this was able to get a little closer to balanced from our semesters. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Spring break would happen to be encompassed there in Easter this year, so that's always nice. If the board doesn't have any questions or concerns, I've already shared this with the feeder districts. Typically, then we get back together in December just to make sure we're all kind of on the same page. And I'd bring this back in December or January for approval for the upcoming year.
All right, any questions on the calendar? All right, anything on the legislative report?
They were able to get out of there. They went into recess today and they did no damage. So every time Springfield leaves without doing damage to education, that's a good thing. A couple of the talking points were there were 2 different proposals to changing the Tier 2 back to Tier 1 or some form of retirement for our teachers. We've talked about that before. Definitely during negotiations, as if they don't do something to the system, it will become very, very expensive for districts to continue to pay. Now, the offset is then they start collecting pensions earlier. So they're looking to come up with something, but they have not done anything yet. But there were two proposals on the table. The other proposal that went to committee would be for the IHSA to not have any ruling whatsoever on transfer rules. So a kid could play 2 weeks of basketball at a certain school A, transfer, and become immediately eligible at school B that very next day. And so this was proposed by a legislator. We obviously filled out our slips in opposition to this. We think there should be transfer rules, and we think the IHSA should be the body that governs that. But it did go to a hearing. Ted, was the hearing yesterday or Wednesday? Well, Wednesday, so it was yesterday. Yeah, so my bad. But yes, hearing was yesterday. We'll see if anything comes of that. One of our legislators did sit on the panel. We've reached out to him as well. So we'll see where that goes. But no damage done at this point.
All right, superintendent's district report.
Nothing additional to report this evening.
Any other district business?
No other business.
Any correspondence?
None this month.
No closed session?
None this evening.
Any other business from anybody? Going once, going twice? No. All right. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Next meeting is December 19th, 2024.